Speaking of kind of like, how do I know what I need? This actually brings us to our second part of our call today is h- how does one know if one needs to use straps or like lifting belts in their training? Because again, something that you see very prevalent out there, people using it, but what is your take on what function do these tools actually have?
I have a I have a very open mind about using additional tools because I don't think there's bad stuff you can use. I think you'll have to understand, okay, what to use it for and how to begin getting rid of it. Because the main goal should always be you don't need it anymore. It's like a crutch. Right. If you break your leg, you're probably going to need crutch for 6 weeks. But the goal is to get rid of the
Mm,
crutches at some point, right? It's the same with straps or lifting belts. So, practical example, let's say um, you can deadlift 200 kilos without straps, and at some point, 210, 220, you're just losing the grip, right? Okay. Should you still continue using straps? Absolutely. But at the same time, you should think about, okay, how can I strengthen my grip? Whether that's through hanging, whether that's through farmer carries, whether that's through, there's a lot of stuff you can do to improve your grip, right? Um, the belt is a little bit more complicated because if you have no body awareness whatsoever, I think the belt has tremendous benefits if you know what to learn with it. Same principle with me doing 10 minutes of cardio. So what's the benefit of the lifting belt? It helps kind of compressing my trunk, which in my world is okay. It gives me an easier time using my obliques because I can press against something
mm,
rather than creating tension by myself. That's way easier because something's pushing against my sides. So I can literally, okay, this is where the belt is, and now I can push actually against it. And
mm.
that helps me engage in my obliques. Okay, this is the start. And the continuum ends at I don't need the belt for lifting 500 kilos off the floor. All right. And now you have to realize where in that continuum you are. So that means you have to know why you have to use the belt to get your obliques going. That means um, use it for a couple of sets and then try to mimic that same oblique pressure feeling without using it. So go back and forth,
Mhm.
right? Obviously use it for heavy lifts. Absolutely, yes, I do too. But I don't want to be dependent on it either.
Could you give us some kind of like really practical numbers? Like, for instance, if you're doing like, I don't know, like a yoke carry, at which number are you like, okay, I think it's time to take the belt?
So for me personally, I never use a belt outside of the 4, 5, 6 times a year where I test my back squat, where I literally test my deadlift, where I literally test my yoke carry. Those are the only days where I'm actually using it. Honestly, I think it's more of a mental thing for me, right? So it's I don't know how to phrase it. Maybe it's an extra security net. I I don't even know if I'll actually need it, but it helps calm down my nerves
So
once
it's
I
kind of
put it
like a
on.
like a binky that you're kind of like more used to calm yourself down as instead of really maybe needing it.
Yes. So for example, I I cannot use it on the deadlift because the ones with the what's that called, the Velcron on it,
Mhm.
that just because I have a pretty thick waist, it always pops up, so
Mhm.
it always opens up, which is a bad idea once you're lifting heavy. I cannot use the ones with the actual belt,
Mhm.
so
With the
um
knuckle.
with the knuckle in front, because that changes my starting position. I cannot use this for deadlifting. So I rarely use it on the deadlift. Sometimes use it on the squatting part. Never use it with sandbags. It's just not necessary.
Mhm.
And when it gets really heavy, that means like I'm tipping my toe into fresh waters of weights that I've never used before on a yoke carry, for example, or it could be even on a farmer carry, sure, I'll use it. But I think for me, it's more mental than actually needed for my structure. But
You
sure,
you
use it.
said that with the sandbag you never use it because you don't need it. Why is that? Is that,
Because, Mhm.
please go
Because the
ahead.
Sandbag is such a great tool because it fits all criteria that I'm looking for in equipment. It fits in between my hands, which is the most natural way to lift up stuff. We've done this for millions of years now. Um, B, I have to squeeze it. That means I have an easier time finding my obliques and my glutes. So there's a bunch of stuff that helps when I use sandbags. The most important one I think is it's so weird because it limits how much weight you can use. There's no way you can lift up the same amount of weight with a sandbag than you can do with a deadlift, right? That should tell you something. Um, in terms of what's natural, what's functional, and what's maybe a better way to test your limits. Of course, a sandbag is not the best way to test your limits because there's no way you can lift up a 200 kilo sandbag if you can do a 200 kilo deadlift. I've actually tried this. Um, so let's say I deadlift 250, and there's no way I can lift a 250 kilo sandbag off the floor. With a 150 kilo sandbag, which is okay to lift it up, right? I've actually never tested it with 200 kilos because that's actually pretty big.
Mhm.
So those are good signs that a sandbag is, due to the three main arguments that I just mentioned, the best way to not, at some point, not having to use a lifting belt whatsoever. You can still use it in the beginning, that's totally fine, but that's why I see it as the most natural way of lifting things.
Would you then say for someone who now maybe is like, okay, I want to kind of like use your pattern of sticking to the lifting belt when testing exercises, does it
Sure.
make sense then kind of like maybe in a few of the sessions leading up to that testing session to try on a belt to kind of like get acquainted with it?
Okay, so let me say something clear. You don't need it at all, right? It's a great additional tool. It's the same with protein powder. You don't need it if you
Mm-hmm.
have your nutrition dialed in, but I still think it's a valid and valuable tool if you don't have access throughout the day to get your protein in a natural way. And that's the same way I see the lifting belt. It's not needed. But again, if I start working with somebody who has very low body awareness in terms of obliques. Like I use a lifting belt and put two tennis balls on each side, so that they're kind of pressing even more on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a tactical cue, and they feel okay. This is where I should press against. Okay, cool. So I think it's valuable for absolute beginners in this way to learn something. And it's valuable for the other end of the spectrum for lifting the heaviest weights possible. As always, stupid answer, but it depends.
Okay.
If you know what to do with it and if you have a purpose and an intent, what that thing should do for you. So if I use it for a newbie, cool. That's the feeling I want to create, right? Maybe we'll start with breathing exercises. We go into some carries. Okay, this is how it should feel. And then I give them a sample because, okay, now recreate that feeling without the belt,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you can bridge the gap between not having to use it, but having the opportunity to use it as a learning tool. But the end goal is you don't need the learning tool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense? It's the same
Yeah,
with
of course.
you starting driving lessons with a
Mm-hmm.
teacher right next to you. Okay, that's comfortable and it's a great feeling to have somebody right next to you, right? But that cannot be the end goal for the rest of your driving life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool for like 10, 15, 20 sessions once you get it, but then you have to practice it without him or her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And then again, my last question, going back to the straps, for instance, what would you tell someone who is of maybe now of the mindset that they say, okay, I'm using straps when I'm doing, like, for instance, um, deadlifts with some kettlebells or barbells or whatever, and they then say that this movement, they see that as a way to train their hamstrings, their glutes, and it's not there to train their hands. And they very strictly, like, kind of separate. And what would you tell someone like that? Besides, I know you
Just
would
make
probably be
sure,
like, do what you want to do, but other than that.
no, just make sure there's something in there where you actually train your grip on your hands and
Mhm.
your forearm. And like, this is not about grip. So we talked about the muscle chains before. I see it not as I'm working on my grip. I'm
Mhm.
seeing it as, okay, there's different entries to not only the rabbit holes, but also to the muscle chains, right? So that means I practice um,
Mhm.
through grip work on finding muscle chains. So that means on one end, I start with the hand, and on the other hand, I start with whether that's glutes or whether that's your obliques. And I think that's a great way to kind of change your perspective on um, how to access your body. There's different pathways how to exit it, and I have to train all of them. So in that case, as you mentioned, is okay, just make sure you're training your grip, not only your grip, but seeing it as, okay, I have to practice, okay, kind of a semi-false grip to get my forearm in, whether that's through hanging, whether that's through carries. Forearm leads to the biceps leads to the lats leads to the blah blah blah. So, and I have to do it both ways. I cannot just start on one side of the equation and hope to come out of the other end unscathed. No, that's not how it works. I have to do both sides. I have to start at the end of the lats and also at my hands.
Mhm.
If that makes any sense. So
Okay,
just make
but
sure you're hanging, you're carrying stuff, and not using straps. That's it.
then actually, it would just, from what you just said, it makes actually perfectly sense to have it like all in one go and to just for pure efficiency reasons.
What does that mean for pure efficiency reasons?
I mean, I can either be like, okay, I want to train my body and I'm gonna do this part here and this part here and this part here. And what you just said actually would be like a connection between all these single things flying around. So it's
Yes. So I
you get
think
more bang for your
yes.
buck.
Yes. So that's why I'm trying to bring through the book a different kind of perspective in here. It's not just thinking about exercises, not about the deadlift where I use my straps and then I don't
Mhm.
use straps on the farmer carry. It's more like, okay, what's the end goal? It's the three muscles. It's the lats, the obliques, and the glutes. Okay. What's the best way to tackle it from all different angles, from your feet to your hips to your hands? Okay, am I missing something? And the templates we're providing is everything is built in there, and that's the beauty. As I mentioned earlier, I think nowadays it's important to get filters on of what you actually need to get better. And the templates are my best try to filter through all the information, whether that's cardio, proprioception, mobility, foam rolling, powerlifting, weightlifting, worked for me and my gym, which is great. And that's where I'm offering it to everybody else out there. Um, and I try to bring everything together in a easy to digest format.
Perfect.
Sweet.
That's
All
all
right, guys,
for
bring on
today.
the questions. Great questions. Have a great week. Bring them on. Train your asses off. And I'll guess we'll see each other next week.